So like, I'd fully intended to just do the one video power scaling Wolf Glick for April Fool's Day and call it quits. I'd fully expected that video to gain zero traction and for it to just do like terrible and for me to never think about it again, but it's not my most viewed video of all time. By a lot. And I got a comment on that video. A comment that gave me an idea. A wonderful, awful idea. You see, somebody commented and they said, I can't wait for the Wolf versus LeBron video, so here I am. Power scaling LeBron James and the rest of the 2013 Miami Heat against Wolfey Parish. Clearly, I'm in control of my life. Hey everybody, my name is Andy and I play competitive Pokemon. If you didn't know, the official format for competitive Pokemon is called VGC, and it consists of double battles where each player only chooses to bring 4 of their 6 Pokemon. I won't get into the super nitty gritty details of it, but essentially the best VGC player of all time is Wolfe Glick, and last December he used the team lovingly referred to as Wolfey Parish to win the Toronto Regional Championships. Today, we're going to see if Wolfe could coach his team of very clearly well-trained athletes to victory against the incarnation of LeBron James, where he is at his strongest, playing for the 2013 Miami Heat. Before we get into teams, allow me to give a brief description of a basketball game and each position in basketball. Not because I don't think you don't know what they are, but because I don't know what they are. You see, basketball is a team sport played on a court that is 94 feet long and 50 feet wide. Each team attempts to put a basketball, into a 10-foot tall hoop on the opposite side of the court. Apparently, this is called a field goal. Players cannot simply run with the ball, they must dribble or bounce the ball while they are moving. Basketball is played by 5 players on each team at a time, though the full roster can be as many as 18 people. As such, there are 5 positions that are widely recognized: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. Because basketball is such a fluid sport with every player playing offense and defense, it's hard to pinpoint exactly the role of each member on a team, but broadly, a point guard is the playmaker for the team, the shooting guard is the main mid to long range scorer, the small forward is an all-arounder, the power forward is mainly a defensive role, but they also shoot when they need to, and the center is the main defensive player on the team. They're usually the biggest guy, and they get a lot of rebounds, and they block a lot of shots. I'll be covering each player's positions as we go, so, keep all of that in mind. Let's start with the away team. Let's talk about the Miami Heat. For the purposes of this video, we'll use the most common starting lineup that they used for the 2012 and 2013 season. That means that Chris Bosh, Mario Chalmers, Udonis Haslem, and Dwayne Wade will all be joining LeBron James on the court. We could really break it down and go into the whole 18-man roster, but for reasons we'll get into later, that is going to be a big waste of time. For now, assume that for some reason, the Heat only have these 5 players. Looking at the barest of important stats of basketball, you'll notice that every player on the Miami Heat is basically towering over Wolfe's team, with the exception of Archaludon. You see, every player comes in well over 6 feet tall, with the shortest one being 6'2" Mario Chalmers. Based on the conversations I've had with my friends who know better than me, it seems like size is what they consider to be the most important factor going into this contest. Yeah, imagining 2-foot tall Amoonguss coming up to Chris Bosh's knees is a really funny mental image. And the other obvious advantage that every one of these players is going to have over Wolfe's team is skill at basketball. These are professional players playing at the peak of their skill. They win the championship in 2012 and 2013. Let's break down the individual players. First up, at the position of power forward, we have Udonis Haslem. He is a career Miami Heat player and is apparently good enough for this position that he pushed LeBron out of it himself. His shooting stats are okay. You can count on him to score a few baskets each game, but where he really excels are in his defensive stats. He's better than almost anybody else in our lineup at getting rebounds on both offensive and defensive plays. He doesn't typically stay on the court for the whole game, but while he's there, he seems to be an important defensive piece for the Miami Heat. Next, at the position of point guard is Mario Chalmers. Another basically career Miami Heat player, Mario doesn't really stand out as far as his stats go. He's got more assists than the average, and he scores maybe a little bit more points than the average person on this team. But, as somebody who's not really familiar with the NBA, I can't really understand what his value is based purely on the statistics that I'm looking at. But as the point guard, the proverbial anchor of the team, I can only assume that he excels at getting the ball where it needs to be to get the plays started. Filling out the shooting guard position, we have the famous, but not quite as famous as LeBron James, Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade has played for a couple non-Miami Heat teams, but mostly he's played on the Heat. Dwayne is going to be one of the main scoring players on this team, with the second highest average points scored per game out of anybody on the team. He doesn't just score points though, as he's pretty well rounded, and he has very good stats for getting rebounds and giving assists, and he has the highest average steals per game of anybody on the Miami Heat. Switching back to defense, let's talk about our center, Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh is the tallest member of the team, coming in at an astounding 6'11". He spent an even half of his career on the Toronto Raptors before spending the other half playing for the Miami Heat. Bosh has the highest amount of blocks per game out of anybody on the team, and he has the second highest average for rebounds. He's a big part of the defensive core, but surprisingly, he's also the third highest scorer for the team. Basically, the way this was explained to me, since Chris Bosh is spending most of his time underneath the basket trying to catch rebounds while the team is on offense, and since Chris Bosh is so tall, he's got a lot of opportunities to get really sneaky points in fresh off of rebounds. And finally, last but certainly not least, we have our small forward, the MVP of the team for the year that we are talking about, LeBron James himself. LeBron has the best stats by far out of anybody on the team. He scores the most points, he gets the most rebounds, he even has the most assists. He has the second highest amount of steals per game on the team. It's kind of funny that this is the year he's considered to be at his strongest, because the Heat is actually the team that he spent the least amount of time on. And in fact, he's the player on the team with the least number of years playing for the Miami Heat overall. Simultaneously, he also has the longest running career out of everybody by far on this team. If we use some kind of composite LeBron James who has all of the experience of modern day LeBron and all of the power of burning youth that 2013 LeBron had, then he would be an absolutely terrifying force of basketball. This is a man who has played every position in his career, and that's really interesting because he's still playing small forward and power forward on most of the teams he's playing on, and I've noticed a lot of these people seem to just get thrown into center when they get old. Alright, now let's talk about Wolfey Perish. If I scaled Pokemon the same way that I have previously, Wolfey wins this game way too easily to even be making this video. Clearly, we don't want Kingdra running around at the speed of lightning and being able to push mountains or something, right? So for this video, we're going to implement what is called equalized stats. Basically, this is just me recognizing that every Pokemon on Wolf's team would normally be much faster and stronger than any normal person, so we're going to pretend that they operate on the same level as the 2013 Miami Heat. For an added bonus, I'm also going to limit Wolf to strategies that would be feasibly legal in an official basketball game. So no, comment section, he can't just use Perish Song to kill everybody on the Miami Heat. That is unsportsmanlike conduct. This rule actually limits what Wolf can do quite a bit, as it basically prevents any moves that create a projectile, any moves that would do damage to a player on the court, and funnily enough, it even prevents parting shot, because cussing somebody out and leaving the field is in fact also unsportsmanlike conduct. Another limitation of this scenario is that the only Pokemon that can move with the ball around the court are the ones that can feasibly dribble it. And while there's nothing in the rules as written that would prevent Kingdra from headbutting the ball to block or pass, I don't see any way it's moving the ball around the court unless we say it's just not taking steps. And that's kind of a stretch. Similarly, I guess Amoonguss and Archaludon could technically dribble the ball if they tried really hard, but I can't imagine them getting very far with it. So basically, Wolf can't use very many attacks and half of his Pokemon can't even dribble the ball. What can he even do? Don't worry, Wolf can do plenty. Alright, bear with me. This next part is going to take a lot of me making shit up. Let's look at Wolf's team really fast. First, we're going to start with Amoonguss. Amoonguss has a very good supporting moveset, but it has one move in particular that I think is really interesting that Wolf could really take advantage of. You see, Rage Powder is a bug-type move that redirects any attack from an opponent into Amoonguss. Essentially, anytime the ball is passed or a shot is taken by the other team, Amoonguss could steal the ball just by using Rage Powder, and for this reason we'll be placing Amoonguss at power forward. Now that sounds incredibly broken, but to mitigate how broken this is, we'll make Wolf actually have to keep track of the PP for each of his moves. So assuming it's been PP maxed, Wolf can only use Rage Powder 32 times. Now hypothetically, if we treated each quarter like an individual battle in a VGC match, which I think would be fair, then Amoonguss could use Rage Powder 32 times in a quarter, and given that the average number of field goals attempted by the Miami Heat per game was 77, then, wow, okay, yeah. Wolf could just block every single shot with just Rage Powder and still have 50 PP left. Okay, that's not fair. Well, what if it was every half? 64 is still a lot. All right, well, I feel like I'm jumping through a lot of hoops, but I guess Wolf doesn't get to reset his PP ever, and he only gets however much he starts with. Now you may be asking yourself, Andy, what if the other team just wears goggles? And I combed through pictures of the Miami Heat in 2013, and nobody on that team wears goggles. So nobody is immune to Rage Powder. I'm sorry, these are the rules. I only made them. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about another move that Amoonguss has, Protect. Now, Every single Pokemon on Wolfe's team has Protect, but since Amoonguss has it, we'll just go ahead and get it out of the way. Protect is pretty self-explanatory. It normally protects the user from all attacks for 1 turn. There are exceptions, but I don't think LeBron James has the ability Unseen Fist, so let's ignore those for now. Unless I'm missing something obvious, I'm pretty sure that Wolfe could just use this to actively prevent the ball from being stolen, and this helps a lot, as now any Pokemon who would have an awkward time dribbling up and down the court like Amoonguss and Archaludon can, just click Protect anytime the ball would get stolen. Another way you could say that this move gets used is to set screens. No, not those screens. Essentially, in basketball, a screen is when a player stands in a certain position on the court to prevent defenders from being able to move freely. Since Protect is basically just like a wall that you can summon, it's probably really good for that. It has pretty low PP, only 16 compared to like Rage Powder, but remember, every single Pokemon on Wolfe's team can use this move 16 times, and that's honestly really worth considering. Next up, let's talk about Politoed. Now normally, I'd be highlighting Politoed for its ability Drizzle, which makes it rain. Unfortunately, I've been informed by my friends that they will stop a basketball game if there's like too much sweat on the floor, so obviously rain is just gonna get the whole game canceled. Mainly, I'm gonna call out the move Encore. In-game, Encore forces the target to repeatedly do the last move they clicked for 3 turns. In this context, I would assume that this means that Politoed could force a player to like stand in place and pretend to shoot baskets for a little bit. At only 8 PP, it's not super overpowered or anything, but imagining the situation where this happens is really, really funny. Now, the other thing that I want to call out about Politoed is its biology. You see, Politoed is really short. It's only 3'7", but it's a frog. Frogs, on average, can jump at least 10 times their own body length, maybe more. So potentially, Politoed can jump 30 feet into the air or more, and that's probably overkill, but Politoed in this circumstance is essentially a 3-foot tall player that can get more vertical reach than anybody else on the court. And probably even, if you do the math, Politoed can probably dunk the ball from the 3-point line. And, as far as I can tell based on the rules, if you jump from the 3-point line and dunk the ball, that is 3 points. Politoed is also almost guaranteed to get any jump ball, and he could even jump way above everybody's heads to like pass the ball more safely. This attribute, along with actually having, hands kinda, and generally being more agile than most of the Pokemon on this team, makes Politoed the perfect point guard. Gothitelle is a Pokemon with a very weird physiology. I don't know if you've ever looked really hard at Gothitelle from weird angles, but it's not wearing a dress, alright? It's got a really long body with really, really tiny legs. And I can't imagine its mobility is very good if it needs to move up and down the court with a basketball. But you know what? I guess at least it has hands. Anyway, what Gothitelle does is it has the ability Shadow Tag. Basically, in-game, Shadow Tag says the opposing Pokemon can't switch out. There are exceptions, but none of the players in the Miami Heat in, the year that we're talking about them are dead, so don't worry about it. In the context of basketball, I imagine this means the Heat aren't allowed to make any substitutions as long as Gothitelle is in play. And this doesn't sound super broken, but I think it's sneakily really good for some stuff we're gonna get into later. Now, Gothitelle also has one move that I'd like to talk about. You see, the description for the move Psychic says that the target is hit by a strong telekinetic force. Well, if Psychic is just telekinesis, then who's to say that Gothitelle can't just use Psychic on the ball to make it go in the hoop? Who's to say Gothitelle can't just use Psychic on the ball to stop it from going in the hoop or change the trajectory of a pass? I don't see anything in the rules of the NBA as written that would prevent somebody from using psychic powers. For this reason, we're gonna put Gothitelle at shooting guard, because essentially Gothitelle can make a basket from anywhere on the court at will. Lastly, Gothitelle has the move Trick Room. Normally, Trick Room reverses the speed order of every Pokemon on the field. This essentially means that fast Pokemon move last and slow Pokemon move first. You could probably argue what kind of effect this would have on players in a basketball game, as, basketball isn't a very turn-based game, but I brought some evidence to back it up. You see, the Pokemon anime has been around for so long that somebody down there at the Pokemon Anime Incorporated had to figure out what Trick Room looks like in a non-turn-based setting, and let me tell you, those slow Pokemon go real fast. This means that all of our Pokemon that would normally be moving around the court awkwardly, like Gothitelle and Amoonguss and Archaludon, can essentially at the flip of a switch dash around the court at incredible speeds. Tell me, what would you do if a 6-foot tall electrified bridge started rushing at you like you owed it money? Kingdra. Oh, Kingdra. Kingdra. Look at how they massacred my boy. He can't dribble. He can't use Swift Swim. He can't click any of his moves. Really, the only thing that Kingdra has going for it is that it's the fastest Pokemon that Wolfe has access to. And I guess maybe you could argue that it can like float in the air, but that feels like a really desperate argument to make. So what can Kingdra do? Well, like I said, it's the fastest Pokemon Wolfe has access to. And honestly, sometimes there'll be value in just that. Nothing's preventing Kingdra from being able to like, swim around and headbutt the ball to like block shots or facilitate passes. And that's cool, but unfortunately, that's really all that it does. Maybe Kingdra can run around and like click protect to set up screens for all of the other Mons on the field, but like, that's also kind of not great. Unfortunately, I think that Kingdra's main function on this team is as a 6th Mon that can switch in for Incineroar, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. Alright, before we get to Incineroar, who's probably going to be the MVP of this match, let's talk about Archaludon. Outside of Protect, Archaludon also has no moves or abilities that are worth talking about here. What Archaludon does have is pure size. You see, Archaludon is a bridge. Archaludon is the tallest Pokemon on Wolfe's team, standing at 6'7". It's actually shorter than Adonis Haslam, which is really, really funny that this man's taller than a bridge. But Archaludon is also naturally very wide, and it can become even wider by standing on all fours, which it does, pretty often. And normally the rules of basketball would prevent standing on all fours, but the rules as written prevent stretching out in ways that would be considered an unnatural position. And you see, Archaludon is a bridge. So for Archaludon, standing like this, I think you could argue would be a natural position. So basically, what Archaludon can do is be a 6 foot tall and 6 foot wide wall that people can't walk past. And for this reason, he's going to be the perfect center. And I want to say that Archaludon is also electrified like an electric offense when it's, standing on all fours, but I don't know if that's against the rules or not. Let me know down in the comments if you think it would be against the rules for Archaludon to be electrified, because personally, I feel like if you touch the electrified bridge, that's on you and not the electrified bridge. Coming in at 5'11" and 183 pounds, you know him, you love to hate him, but you can't play VGC without him. It's Incineroar! Incineroar arguably does less individual unique things than some of the Pokemon on this team so far, but I think what the Incineroar does is really important. Let's start small. Incineroar is the Pokemon on this team with the best physiology for basketball. For this reason, we're going to put Incineroar at small forward right in front of our boy LeBron James. In addition to being like a decent height and weight, Incineroar has kind of crazy long arms. Like, his wingspan is easily much longer than his height, and as such, his vertical reach is probably also a lot higher than you would expect. And my god, he has real hands with thumbs and everything. This is what peak performance looks like. Now, we've only got maybe one move and his ability that we want to talk about here. And I say maybe because that move is Knockoff. Now, in-game, Knockoff does damage and causes the target to drop their hold item. And at first glance, that sounds great, right? Incineroar can just run around and steal the ball, 100% guaranteed whenever it wants. But remember, Knockoff does damage. Now, technically, it is okay to hit the other player's hand if you're trying to steal the ball. Or it's okay to hit the other player if the referee doesn't see it. And obviously, Incineroar is a dark type and a heal, and he would super be okay with doing shady things while the ref isn't looking. But it's risky, and I think Knockoff would be a really, really phenomenal tool to have. I just can't say with 100% certainty that you're going to get away with it all the time. Let me know in the comments if you think Incineroar can get away with using Knockoff. I kind of think that it does, but I can't say for sure that it does. The other thing Incineroar has is really, really important, alright? Incineroar has the ability Intimidate. And what Intimidate does in game is it lowers the attack stat of all of the opponents every time Incineroar enters battle. It's probably the best ability in the history of VGC. What would it do in basketball? Well, I would imagine that it lowers their strength or their resolve or something. No matter what it's lowering on the opposing team, it's gonna make them a little bit worse at basketball. And as I'm writing this, I'm learning that the number of substitutions allowed in a single basketball game is unlimited, so that's really broken because this activates every time Incineroar hits the court. Now, Intimidate isn't going to work an unlimited number of times. Obviously, the lowest a stat can go is -6, and you're allowed unlimited substitutions, but there aren't unlimited opportunities where you could do a substitution, so it's not going to be a feasible strategy to just switch Incineroar in and out, 6 times every quarter. But you could get it off 2 times if you wanted to. Now, I'd love to make the argument, since that Wolfe's PP doesn't get reset in between quarters, that Intimidate's stat drop shouldn't get reset, but all of my friends who actually watch basketball took, a lot of issue with that, So we're going to say that every quarter, all of the Heat's stat drops get reset. So they can, come in fresh and then get intimidated once again when, Incineroar hits the court. So, LeBron, don't say it never did you any favors, all right? Now, I can give all the credit in the world to Wolfe Glick for how good he is at games of pure strategy like Pokemon and apparently chess, but I have no idea how familiar he is with basketball. I looked on his Twitter and I could only find 2 tweets that were about basketball, and they're not really about basketball. They just have the word basketball in them. So that didn't really help me when I was trying to do research for this. All I can assume is that Wolfe Glick and all of the Pokemon on Wolfe Glick's team at least know what basketball is and know what the basic rules of basketball are, because we know that basketball exists in the Pokemon universe. There's a trainer class that plays basketball in Pokemon Black and White. But that means that he might not be familiar enough with basketball to straight up outcoach a team of 8 professional basketball coaches, because that's what the Miami Heat has. He also has to out-basketball a team of 5 professional basketball players. But here's the thing you need to remember. This is very far from a straightforward basketball game, okay? Wolfe needs to adapt to playing basketball, but the Heat need to adapt to all the crazy crap that the Pokemon have. That being said, let's jump into the match itself. Like I mentioned, like 30 seconds ago. The game is basketball, but it's not really a normal game of basketball, at least not any normal game of basketball that I know of. An area of contention that I know that the basketball people among you are going to have, because people have voiced it to me already, is points. How can Wolfe possibly score enough points to outscore the Miami Heat? Well, I think I've laid out a lot of the pieces. You see, in an average game, the Miami Heat are going to score just a little bit over 100 points. I feel like this is a number Wolfe could easily hit with the tools at his disposal. Now, if we say that all 16 uses of Psychic from Gothitelle are guaranteed 3-point baskets that Gothitelle can make, then that's easily 48 points that Gothitelle can score all by itself. Now, mind you, that is almost double the average amount of points that even LeBron James is likely to score in one game on average. And it's halfway to our goal. It's kind of hard to quantify exactly how many points the other Pokemon on the team are likely to score. Like, we can assume that Archaludon and Amoonguss probably won't score any baskets just because they literally can't shoot the ball. But how many points are Incineroar and Politoed likely to get? Well, I mean, since we're using equalized stats, we could just say that they could reach the averages of the players they're directly facing off against. This would mean that Incineroar could get about 27 points, like LeBron James, and that Politoed would get about 9 points, like Mario Chalmers. I think this is probably a low ball for Politoed, considering every time it dunks the ball, it can be a 3-pointer. And, it doesn't even have to do that. And this might be a high ball for Incineroar. I don't know. How good is he at shooting baskets? I mean, I guess we're saying he's at least as good as LeBron James. But that gets us up to 84 points, which is still short of our goal of a little over 100. But here's the thing, okay? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and let me tell you why. Remember Intimidate? Well, a -1 stat drop applies a 2/3 modifier to the drop stat. If we're saying that dropping the opposing team's attack stat is equivalent to lowering their ability to score points, then I think that it's fair to say that the Heat only have the ability of actually scoring more like 70 points in one game. 66.6 repeating if you want to get really technical, but we'll say 70. That's not all, right? You see, the Heat have a couple of other really big disadvantages playing in this match against Wolfe. Remember, they can't make any substitutions. That means that every player on the team is going to have to play all 40 minutes of the basketball game, with only the intermissions as breaks. For some of these players, like LeBron and Dwayne, maybe Chris Bosh, that might not be a problem. But the other 2 people on this team, they really only stay in for about half the game on average. I mean, even the players I actively excluded from that statement usually sit out like a good 10 minutes. They're going to be tired. Tired players are much more likely to make mistakes. And this would cut not only the scoring potential of the Heat, but their defensive potential as well. Essentially, Shadow Tag gives Wolfe's team a double-pronged strategy that would allow them to both gain more points and take away points from the other team. And you could make the same argument of Wolfe's team because, he's only got 5 guys who can do anything in the game, but a VGC match can easily go on for 40 minutes, especially with this kind of team that Wolfe is playing. I wouldn't be surprised if he had multiple matches go longer than 40 minutes over the course of the Toronto Regionals. And that's like one best-of-3 match. Let's not even talk about the horrors of playing a single game that takes 40 minutes. I'm looking at you, Dondozo mirror matches. All of this is without even factoring in how insane it is that Amoonguss and Incineroar have 100% blocking and 100% steal rates with Rage Powder and Knockoff. Like, those are insane numbers. The average amount of steals and blocks per player in a single basketball game is like 1 or 2. Incineroar and Amoonguss can more than triple the amount of steals and blocks that a whole team of basketball players does in a single game, all by themselves. And then Wolfe still has Protect to stop steals and set up screens. And even if Wolfe just used Protect to stop steals that were guaranteed to happen, that's 16 times that each Pokemon can stop a steal for free and just get out of all defensive pressure. The average number of field goals attempted by just the most offensive players on the Heat is like 16. Imagine if every single time that LeBron James went to shoot a basket, he could instantly just send all of the defensive players away and not have to worry about them. That's basically what Incineroar does now. So, given all of this, right, I feel like I gave the Heat every possible benefit of the doubt here. I gave the Pokemon reasonable stats. I limited the amount of moves that Wolfe has access to. I banned every damaging move on the team. I even specifically chose a team for Wolfe that seemingly would put him at a disadvantage. This is not an offensive team. Look at these guys and tell me they can play basketball, right? I easily could have put the Heat up against Wolfe's EUIC team, featuring Koraidon and Fluttermane and Screamtail, who probably all dribble baskets around the court in circles against NBA players. Maybe the NBA fans, the basketball fans down there in the comments will disagree with me. Maybe they'll find fault in my logic. Maybe you guys think I'm stupid. Maybe you think this whole video is stupid. I don't know. But for me personally, given everything that we've talked about, I think this is a game that Wolfe is not only like he has a way to win it, I think this is a game that he's pretty likely to win. But, like I said, maybe you disagree. Let me know down in the comments. Tell me what you think about this matchup. Go ahead and leave likes and subscribe. You know, all the likes, all the subscriptions, all the comments, push the video to all of the people. And, you know, if this video does well, we'll power scale Wolfe Glick against other crazy things. Let me know what you want to see, again, down in the comments. But with that, everyone, my name is Andrew. I'll catch you guys next time. A very special thank you to all of the certified AndyLa fans, especially the AndyLa VIPs, including Colton and Cosmic Pharaoh. Once upon a time, man, I heard that I was struggling. Came from a gym where power creep wasn't coming in. Face long, stats tight, defense up, shack height. Sturdy on me, sash like, got the TM last night. Hit me with that good move, make the smile and act right. Bast boys, better hit that builder. I know that's right. Big Bast bustin'